So you can see on the screen there, Leclerc is leading his a practice session here at his home Grand Prix for Ferrari, but Alonso and Stroll have been much quicker around Monaco today compared to where they were in Miami and Imola, where they were just so slow and not on the pace whatsoever. Of course, Alonso is just less than half a second slower than Leclerc around the streets of Monte Carlo. McLaren don't look as quick as before. That's interesting, as they did in Miami or Imola. Sauber, wow, shockingly slow. Nowhere to be seen, to be honest. And what else can be said? Tsunoda once again miles quicker than Ricciardo by almost 2/10 of a second. For Perez, just terribly off the pace again. 8/10 slower. I don't even know what the hell is going to happen to Sergio Perez next year, to be honest. I mean, if he can't keep up, with Max and be a competitive number 2, then it's surely time for Red Bull to reconsider who's their number 2 next year. And of course, there are news headlines that Perez is hopeful of staying with Red Bull for next year, but that's not happening. So, of course, just so we are clear, Alonso has extended his stay for Aston Martin until 2026. Albon has extended his contract at Williams until 2026, so that's 2 seats done there. Albon is up in 9th. Bloody hell, I think it's a return to form for Alex Albon if we can keep this up. And yeah, McLaren, I think, are a little bit slow this weekend. A bit worrying for them because Norris is almost 7/10 of a second slower than Leclerc, who is actually leading the timesheets this afternoon. I don't know who went fastest in FP1, by the way, but for me, FP1 doesn't really mean a lot since, of course, the track is dirty. Just so we know, yeah, the session is now coming to a close. I think all the cars are now going to probably be streaming back into complete their final lap and then return to the pits. And Stroll has improved has improved his time, I think. But he is 3/10 of a second slower than Alonso, who looks bad this weekend. And I think Aston Martin have got on top of their car issues from Miami and, of course, Imola. Don't know who the hell you are. I think that's... Sorry about the spam there. I really do apologise. I don't know who on earth that was. I've deleted his messages. Look at that. Really kind of worrying for McLaren after of course, their strong outings in the last 2 races. Norris and Piastri have lost track. Leclerc, impressive showing for this Friday. Almost 2 tenths faster than Hamilton. Alonso back on form, but half a second adrift off the Ferrari. Verstappen really struggling around here, has to be said. This is not a good. This could be a I mean, if Red Bull don't find a solution until qualifying, I mean, could we see Max miss out on the podium for only the 2nd time this season? I mean, it looks like the rest of the teams are beginning to catch up with Max. Although, of course, McLaren have not actually capitalised on Red Bull's failings so far. Sainz is down in 6th. Yeah, I've got to say it, but Sainz is not really doing his reputation much good in terms of who he can join in for next season. I'm going to bend the stream, but so these are the 4 lap times. 1 minute 11.2 for Leclerc. 1 minute 11.4 for Hamilton, who has been much faster than Russell this weekend. That is Hamilton returning back to form, and it has to be said, Ferrari, I think, probably going to have the best driver lineup on the grid next year. And goodness me, that's a shocking outing there by young Russell, who's been outpaced by Alex Albon in the Williams of all things. Now, obviously, I know it's only FP2, so I'm not entirely. I mean, some of it might change, and of course, some of the drivers on this list might have not been doing qualifying runs, but yeah, that is worryingly slow for Russell, I've got to say. Stroll and Alonso are doing much better before. Of course, Alonso had the most dreadful weekend imaginable at Imola, where he'd been in the gravel, he burned his brakes, he started panicking and driving off the track and doing all sorts of stupid nonsense in what has to be one of the worst races I've ever seen in Alonso's F1 career. But thankfully, though, on a track he's more familiar with and is more comfortable around, Alonso looks like he's back to his best. And as for Stroll, it's the same story. Okay, yes, he's still slower than Alonso, but he's in the top 10 for once. As for, Ocon is outpaced Gasly again, which Pierre Gasly, I think it's time to leave Alpine, because you are not going to beat this guy. You are not beating this guy. You need to... Okay. I know I wanted to say that you should go and join Sauber, but then I just remembered that Hulkenberg will be at Sauber next year, so you'll probably get trashed there next year as well. I think the only option you've got remaining is that you should go and join Williams, where you'll be in a much nicer, friendly environment with Alex Albon as your teammate. Because to be honest, I mean, whenever you go up against a driver with a ruthless streak like an Ocon, a Verstappen, or Hulkenberg, you can't really deal with them. Oh, hello there, Chris and Cardi. I hope you're doing well on this fairly dull Friday afternoon, since, of course, where I live, there is absolutely no sun around, despite, of course, the last weekend there was a heat wave, and now the heat wave has gone away again. So I hope you are having a great afternoon. Who do you think will win? Oh, I'm not sure. I think I should start a poll about this. I'm not sure, man. I think... It could be Leclerc, it could be Hamilton, it could be Alonso for the first time in 11 years. Who knows? Who knows? and I think you'll hear me. I'm typing away on my screen. There is your poll. For those of you wondering who will win, get your please put your answers in. Who do you think? Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, and Max? I think are my top 4 options. I'm gonna say this right now. I don't think it'll be Max, because you've got to realise Red Bull look horribly slow around here. And just so you know, I have deliberately frozen the screen because the session has ended. For those of you wondering, I think I think the only real big surprise has to be the fact that Ferrari have gone quickest, and McLaren are nowhere near as quick as I thought they would be. To be honest, this is fairly disappointing from McLaren, and the fact that Aston Martin have regained form all of a sudden. Thank you very much for the subscription. It means a lot to me here at Crystal Racing. I hope you join me on many streams and comment and like many other videos. Yeah. What else? Yuki Tsunoda once again trashing Ricciardo. I mean, Ricciardo, mate, you keep telling us it's not you, it's the car, but it's definitely you now. It's gotta be you. Like, you've been given many chances to sort out your problems with the cars you've been driving, but mate, you're just not good enough at this point. I don't want to sound vindictive and all that, but it's you, and the same has to be said for Logan Sargeant. That got. Oh my lord, was it half a second slower than Albon again? Yeah, mate. I mean, I really don't know how much longer Sargeant is going to last in F1 at this point. What is he doing, being so slow all the time? Like, I know he's had moments where where he's on a hot lap, but he's like a 10th behind Albon, and then he goes and spins and crashes, and it's like, he'll have his moments where he knows where the grip on the track is, but then the next part of the track, he will forget where the grip on the track is, and then he'll spin and crash and then make a mistake because he doesn't really have the car control or the driving knowledge to know how to actually get the job done. Norris has been driver of the day 3 times in a row. If he does so again in Monaco, he will set a new record on most consecutive races in which a driver has been driver of the day. That's right, folks. If he does it in Monaco, it'll be the first time a driver has won driver of the day since the driver of the day award started back in 2016, with, of course, no driver having managed to win it 4 times in a row yet. But it has to be said, he's got his work cut out. If McLaren can't recover their form, this could be a long weekend for the backer boys. Hiya, Kiefer. How are you doing? What do you think about who will win? Like, do you think it's going to be Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, Verstappen? Because to be honest, I have no idea what's going to happen this weekend because Red Bull are looking off the pace. Russell looks like he's struggling. Albon and Tsunoda are trashing their teammates yet again. Gasly is struggling to get near Ocon, which is extremely worrying to say the least. McLaren don't look as good as they have been for the past 2 races, which I have to say speaks of some issues at the McLaren garage due to the fact, of course, they only just built their new wind tunnel at the end of 2023. Of course, just so you know, they've been spending the past few years using Toyota's wind tunnel down in Germany, but of course, the amount of money they have to spend to fly bits and pieces back and forth between England and Germany was far too expensive for them to justify having a wind tunnel down in that part of the world. As you know, Toyota used to have a Formula 1 team back between 2002 and 2009, hence why McLaren decided to make use of Toyota's garage. And of course, there's another person who believes Leclerc will win, which I think would be fairly fitting since, of course, Leclerc's now not won a race for about 2 years now in Formula 1. And of course, you know, it's amazing to think he only has 5 Grand Prix wins to his name, which is a shame because I think we all know he richly deserves more victories to his name considering how unbelievably fast he is over 1 lap. As for Carlos Sainz, you can tell he's definitely lost form. I mean, nearly 7/10 of a second slower than Leclerc. What is my opinion on golf? I'm going to be quite bluntly honest with this guy. He's very, very, very knowledgeable of the technical side of Formula 1, but I've got to say his opinion pieces are quite disrespectful, if I'm going to be honest at times. Like, I don't know why he started slagging Alex Albon off because I know Albon's had a bad start to the year, but there's no need to slag Albon off. He's not a bad guy. And the sort of things he said about George Russell saying, oh, not George Russell, I mean Daniel Ricciardo, I beg your pardon, about how he believes that Ricciardo secretly has smiling depression, which is... That's a bit rough there, my friend. Like, you really do need to lay off some of the petty childish insults because you are, I believe he's about now 25 years old now, and he still talks like he's 13 years old, which is, blimey, I mean, he needs to grow up. I mean, don't get me wrong, he does have a lot of, he does have a deep technical knowledge of the sport, but his attitude is just too much for me. Yeah, would you look at that? Max Verstappen only 4th and half a second slower than Charles Leclerc. I mean, please get your votes in. Who do you think will win the race? Because I think we're in for an interesting weekend, shockingly enough, for once. I mean, I'll say it, Red Bull's strong start to the season is really now beginning to tail off at this point, and with Adrian Newey announcing his departure, I don't know what could be next for the Red Bull team in the future because this could be bad news because they really need something to help them out. And of course, if things get tough, who knows if what Max Verstappen could do in 2026. Could he leave the team? Yeah, look, I know I said that I think Kimi Räikkönen was the best driver in F1 between 2003 and 2007, but of course, I think we all know that there's been many occasions in Formula One where the best driver does not win. 2010 and 2012 was a good example of this when Alonso had a great season both years, but Sebastian Vettel got the job done in the second of the season when it really counted. He won those races and won himself the championship by the skin of his teeth. Or of course, some would say by the edges of his receding hairline at the time. But you've got to give Vettel credit. He did what he needed to do when it really mattered most, whilst Ferrari's strategy team, and of course an occasional mistake from Alonso where of course he crashed out at Spa 2010 and of course got hit by Grosjean at Spa 2 years later, as well as colliding with Kimi a couple of races later at Suzuka, costed Alonso the championship. And there's been other occasions where, like, you know, Prost lost a couple of championships back in 1983 and 1984 when he lost to Piquet and Lauda. He was faster and better than them in both seasons, but in the end, his car broke down too many times, and in many ways, he realised he was probably being a bit too rough with his equipment. I mean, get your comments in on all the drivers. I think it's pretty safe to say Alpine and Sauber are totally non-entitled teams to be able to get points this weekend. Haas, I'm not really sure they'll be scoring points either. Maybe, I don't know, Tsunoda can score a point for RB depending on what happens in front. Perez is in trouble yet again. Horribly slow driver, and of course, if he fails to qualify in Q3 this weekend, my God, he's surely getting kicked out of Red Bull at the end of this year because, goodness me, like every time he qualifies outside the top 10, he can't really make places up like he used to can in the past. Because the one thing that Perez used to be exceptional at was overtaking people and making up ground during a race. But in recent times, though, not only has his qualifying been atrocious, but his race pace is not what he used to be. And I think Perez is now beginning to go past his best. And that has got to be a huge dilemma for Red Bull because Perez is just not doing the business. And you have to wonder, would it be better off getting a younger driver in the seat? I mean, for all we know, he might end up with Pierre Gasly back in the team. But of course, that depends on whether Herbert Marko and Christian Horner want Pierre Gasly back in the saddle again. And it also depends whether Horner and Marko will even be there come next season, since of course we all know what's going on with the investigations, which of course might indeed see both team management members get kicked out. Please put your comments in what you think about this FP2 order. Who do you think is going to be on the podium? Who you think will win the race? And who you think might score surprise points? Because, of course, say Albon might be in contention for finally scoring Williams' first point of the season. Long overdue. As for Piastri, oh dear, this is really worrying, isn't it? Do you really think Max Verstappen will have a sabbatical? Why on earth would Max have a sabbatical in 2026? Like, I don't know. I have to say, if he takes a sabbatical, I mean, it's actually going to be quite hard for Max to win a championship again when he returns. Like, how long will his sabbatical last for? A year? 2 years? Like, I mean, maybe obviously by that point he will be happy just winning 4 or 5 world championships, just like Sebastian Vettel. But, you know, I think if he does go on a sabbatical, I mean, it will depend on what on earth Ferrari do with Hamilton and Leclerc, because, of course, I can't ever envision a world where Verstappen ends up being a teammate with either of those two drivers. So the alternative, I think, will be Max Verstappen joins Mercedes or Aston Martin. I don't really see Max going to any other teams, to be honest, other than Mercedes, Aston Martin, or Ferrari. But of course, with Ferrari, I mean, I think Ferrari are going to dedicate the rest of their next few years to Charles Leclerc being their number one, when, of course, Lewis Hamilton finally retires. So, really, there's only two choices for Max to join if he ever leaves Red Bull. Honestly, I don't know what. Who do I think was lucky to be world champion? I actually think it was Jenson Button, because Braun, aka Honda, had that decided to give up in 2008 pretty early on, and they decided to pour all their resources on the 2009 car. And of course, with Honda pulling out, they were able to replace the Honda engines with the far more powerful Mercedes engines. So even though, yeah, the broad BGP001 was a botch job with having to make the crankcase bigger to fit the Mercedes engine in, he ended up with a faster and more powerful car, regardless of the fact that they had to fit in a much larger Mercedes engine. But having said that, though, Honda leaving Formula 1 was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to Jenson Button, and of course what is now officially the Mercedes team. As for Nico Rosberg, yes, I know he was fortunate through Lewis Hamilton having a couple of mechanical failures and quite a lot of driving penalties in 2016, but the fact of the matter is, Rosberg drove as well as he possibly could. And you also got to realise he himself lost points through, of course, crashing into Hamilton at Spain and Austria, and of course braking issues at Monaco, where of course he was forced to finish down in 7th place in the race. So, you know, it wasn't like 2016 was perfectly smooth sailing for Rosberg. He had to make sure his starts were perfect by actually being able to operate the clutch properly at the start. Unlike Hamilton, he kept bogging down and losing 4 or 5 places, costing him chances of beating Rosberg for race wins. And, you know, in the end, I mean, even though Hamilton was the faster driver again, Rosberg was the more precise and more accurate driver in his performances. So, ultimately, you make your own luck in Formula 1, and I think that's what a lot of Rosberg did. And he had been, and you have to realise it was his 7th year as a Mercedes driver, and a 4th year of Rosberg being Hamilton's teammate. So he had been grinding his arse off for a long time at Mercedes. There are rumours Gasly might go to Williams. I think going to Williams would be a brilliant move for Gasly, because honestly, he's got no chance of beating Esteban Ocon. And if he was to go to Sauber, I think he would struggle to beat Nico Hulkenberg at this point. So I think it would be better for Pierre Gasly to have Alex Albon as a teammate. And of course, we have to know right now, Williams are spending a huge amount of resources updating their facilities and updating their factory model as we speak. So, you know, once Williams sort their team out, I think Gasly could well be possibly driving a fairly competitive Williams car next season, which I think could challenge for P6 in the championship if things go to plan for Williams. And of course, you've got to realise with, of course, Albon as a teammate, I think they'll have a very competitive driver partnership for the first time since 2016. Like the first time Williams have had 2 good drivers together since he had Massa and Bottas together in the same team. So yeah, I think it'd be a fantastic move for the Williams Grand Prix engineering team. I don't know what else to say, folks. I think I'll just leave this up for like the next few minutes, and then if anyone else has any more questions that you want to ask me, I'll be back in a few moments. Of course, just for those of you wondering, the session has ended, so I'll just leave the timing screen for about another half an hour, and I will return at some point in the next 10 minutes. So please ask me any questions for the one person still watching this stream. Anyone? Any questions? Well, okay. And if you're watching, hello, this is Crystal Racing. This is the results of FP2, which has ended over half an hour ago. Leclerc has gone fastest by 0.2 of a second over Hamilton. Almost half a second faster than Alonso. Over half a second faster than Verstappen. A real show, a real turn up for the books here, I've got to say. And Red Bull's domination, I think, is beginning to come to an end. Perez is struggling yet again. McLaren are having a bit of a worrying weekend for their standards. Albon has had a fantastic Friday, up in ninth place ahead of George Russell. Only 300s ahead of George Russell, but still, what a performance by Alex Albon. Tsunoda once again doing the job for the RB team. McLaren, Piastri, oh my god, Piastri is having a shocking weekend if I'm going to be honest. Haas and Alpine and Sauber are doing what the hell they can. And then, of course, you've got Ricciardo and Sargeant who are just stinking out the place yet again. Stinking out the place even more than me. Going out there, pulling on my, using my right hand to, like, squeeze one out over the side of some, lady with no hair and a big bosom and a backside. That's all I'm going to say, okay? I think I might have revealed a bit too much about my my own likings there. Please like and subscribe to the video. Like, I'll end it. I will go back to being a normal person again. Please vote in the poll. Who do you think will win the race? Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, and Max? And it looks like there's 4 people who think Leclerc has got a chance of winning his home Grand Prix for the very first time around here, and making it the first time that Monaco ever sees a home Grand Prix winner around this famous straight track. Although, of course, there's at least 2 people who still think Max Verstappen has a chance. Gotta say it though, but with Max being over half a second slower than the Ferrari, wow, God, things are tight. And I've got to say, Ferrari are going to have one hell of a driver partnership next year. Okay. No, I think I might be. Would you look at that, folks? And of course, the 2 Saubers, miles of the pace. I mean, Bottas and Zhou's careers are pretty much dying before our eyes at this point. Not that I care about either Bottas or Zhou staying in Formula 1 because they're just both the same sort of mediocrity. Sargeant is definitely out of the sport at the end of this year. And Ricciardo's hopes of hanging on to his seat are hanging by a thread. I hope you're doing well if you're watching this stream. I think I'll leave these results up for another 20 odd minutes before, of course, I try and sort. Well, okay, maybe not 20 minutes, but you know what I mean. The session ended 40 minutes ago. I mean, obviously, the top 4 drivers are going to have a great weekend. As for everyone else, I mean, it's going to be a hard weekend, and Albon is surely going to try and use this as a platform to get a top 10 finish and score Williams' first points of the season, because it has been a painfully bad year so far for the growth-based team, who are in the process of basically refurnishing the team with new data models, new factory equipment, and new things that will make them be able to build a much better car in the future. And I think 2024 is going to be sort of a write-off for the boys from Oxford. Whilst, of course, I mean, Sauber and Alpine are just absolutely down in the dumps. Forget about those 2. Ocon is just basically... I mean, can Ocon really get a better seat right now? Because I know obviously he's doing well for Alpine, but do Mercedes really want Ocon? I mean, that will be an interesting question that we're going to have to answer. And I think I would not be surprised if he does go to Mercedes because, of course, he would probably serve as good competition for George Russell, who is seriously underperforming right now. I mean, he was only, what, just under 0.3 of a second faster than Ocon, considering that, I mean, he's a much faster car, which is pretty worrying. Since of course it's now just one person watching, I'm just going to end the stream now. So thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time.